This morning, the Trump administration was notified by the United States military that as Israel was attacking Hamas, which very unfortunately was located in a section of Doha, the capital of Qatar. Unilaterally bombing inside Qatar, a sovereign nation and close ally of the United States that is working very hard and bravely taking risks with us to broker peace, does not advance Israel or America's goals. However, eliminating Hamas, who have profited off the misery of those living in Gaza, is a worthy goal. President Trump immediately directed Special Envoy Witkoff to inform the Qataris of the impending attack, which he did. The president views Qatar as a strong ally and friend of the United States and feels very badly about the location of this attack. President Trump wants all of the hostages in Gaza and the bodies of the dead released, and this war to end now. President Trump also spoke to Prime Minister Netanyahu after the attack. The Prime Minister told President Trump that he wants to make peace, and quickly. President Trump believes this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. The president also spoke to the Emir and Prime Minister of Qatar and thanked them for their support and friendship to our country. He assured them that such a thing will not happen again on their soil.
This is my video update on this Wednesday afternoon, September the 10th, coming to you from Nicosia, Cyprus. Let's talk about some news. And let's start things off. Man, we have a lot of news. We have a lot of news to get to, so let's knock it out. Let's start things off with, how about Nepal? And what we got yesterday in Nepal was a straight up regime change. Plain and simple, this was a regime change. It reminded me a bit of 2014 Maidan in a way, right? The protests and then the violence. A lot of people died, about 20, I believe 22 people died, and a lot of people injured. And eventually the government pulled back, and they said that they're not going to cancel social media, social networks. And they were going to allow the social networks to operate again, but that wasn't enough. And the protesters then started burning stuff down, man. They started burning down the prime minister's residence and the deputy prime minister, the financial minister's residence. And they started to go after the government officials, and they grabbed some of them and dragged them through the streets. And eventually the prime minister resigned. Prime Minister Oli resigned, as it looks like, as it looked like through the videos and the images that much of Nepal was being set on fire by the Gen Z student protesters. So there you have it. That was Nepal, a straight up regime change. Many people obviously are unhappy with the government and corruption, but things got violent, and the government tried to enact laws to shut down, not to shut down social media, to get social networks to comply with local laws, and that was the spark that led to huge protests and the violence and the burning down of buildings, and eventually the government collapsed. And I believe now the military has taken over. I think the prime minister and some government officials, they are at an undisclosed location, and a curfew has been put in place by the military. But I saw images of protesters with automatic weapons, with guns and automatic weapons and stuff like that, roaming the streets. The Gen Z protesters, right? So all of this happened in Nepal about a week after the India-China Shanghai Cooperation Agreement, détente, right? 1 week after all of that stuff went down in China, between India and China, you now have this regime change, which takes place in Nepal, and a successful regime change at that. And yesterday, Trump posts on Truth Social that India and the United States are resuming tariff and trade negotiations. And he had some very complimentary words to say about Modi. And Modi also posted that he's hoping for good negotiations to take place with the United States, which is a good thing. It's good that the United States gets along with India, and it's good that India gets along with China, and it would be good for the United States to get along with China, right? But the Truth Social posts from Trump happened on the same day about India and the United States resuming tariff negotiations and trade talks. Happens on the same day that you have the Nepal regime change. And keep in mind that 2 years ago, Cookies Newland was in Nepal, and she delivered an ultimatum to the leadership of Nepal. And that ultimatum was either the U.S. or China. And I believe that China was also planning to build high-speed rail through Nepal. I'll try to find the news post about that and put it up on the screen. Yeah, so China was investing in Nepal. India has a very strong presence and influence in Nepal, and the message from the United States, this is my opinion, is both to China and India, and I believe that message is we're here in your region, in your backyard. So as you guys are talking about détente and getting along, we just want you to know that we're here, and we can get some regime changes going if we want, and we can get them going pretty quickly and pretty effectively. I think that was the message that was sent to both China and to India. So that's Nepal. Big news that broke yesterday. But that's not it. That is not all the news that broke yesterday. We then had the big story, which was the Israeli strike into Qatar, a decapitation strike looking to take out the Hamas negotiators. Israel claims that this was a unilateral strike, unilateral decision. No other countries were involved, according to Benjamin Netanyahu. It was just Israel, no other countries. It was Israel's decision, and they got help from no one. And they went after the negotiators in Qatar with a precision strike. I believe 15 fighter jets were involved, or 10 fighter jets were involved, Israeli fighter jets. 15 missiles were fired at this area, this compound where the Hamas negotiators were studying. They got together to study a Trump ceasefire proposal. So they were all in one place, and they were taking a look at a very basic proposal that Trump had presented to both Hamas and to Israel. We're talking about 100 words. That was the Trump proposal for a ceasefire. And there are officials in Hamas. They told DropSite, which got a hold of the proposal, that the proposal doesn't even look like it was written by the United States. It looks like it was written by Israel. That's what they told DropSite. And you even have an Israeli analyst, Amit Segal, known for his connections to Prime Minister Netanyahu, who said this is not an American proposal, but an Israeli one, wrapped in an elegant cellophane and labeled "Made in the USA." Trump's plans are a bit like Apple products. iPhones are manufactured in China and shipped to the US, where they were wrapped and stamped, made in the USA. So there were some people who took a look at this proposal and they said that this thing does not look like it was written by the United States, but it looks like it was written by Israel. There wasn't much detail put into this proposal from my understanding of things. It talked about a ceasefire being accepted within 48 hours, accepting the deal in 48 hours, and then you get a ceasefire, and that ceasefire holds for 60 days, and then you begin negotiations, and Hamas releases all of the hostages, and then Israel agrees to also release Palestinian prisoners. And there's some talk about investment into Gaza, though there are no details about exactly what that meant. And that was the deal that the negotiators were taking a look at. And then Israel decided to hit this site where the negotiators were. A decapitation strike going after the negotiating team of Hamas. And at first the reports were that this was a successful decapitation strike. They got to the negotiators. But then it was reported that the negotiators escaped. But one of the negotiators, Khalil al-Hayya, his son actually died in this strike, as well as some other senior aides to the negotiating team in Hamas, and also some security and some bodyguards have also gone missing from this strike. So people did die in the airstrike into this compound. And it was also reported at first, this is from Israeli media, that Trump greenlit this entire operation. And there were also reports saying that Qatar was in on this as well. But then you had the Qatari foreign minister immediately come out with a statement, the foreign ministry spokesman, saying the statements being circulated about Qatar being informed of the attack in advance are baseless. The call from a U.S. official came during the sound of explosions caused by the Israeli attack in Doha. So the Trump White House is saying that they knew nothing about this. And when they did find out about this, it was too late. Israel's attack in Qatar infuriated Trump advisors, officials say. That's what Axios is reporting. Let me pull up that Axios article. Since Axios, for some reason, has very, very good insight and very good access to the Trump White House. Behind the scenes, the news stunned the White House and infuriated some of Trump's top advisors because it came as the U.S. was waiting for Hamas to respond to Trump's new proposal for peace in Gaza. In fact, the Hamas officials were meeting to discuss that proposal. The White House expected to receive Hamas's response by the end of the week. Qatar became the seventh country Israel has bombed since October 7th, 2023. How it happened: once Trump was briefed on the imminent strike, he instructed White House envoy Steve Witkoff to notify the Qataris. A U.S. official said by the time Witkoff reached them, the bombs had already hit their target. So Carolyn Levitt, in her statement, she said that Trump considers Qatar one of the best U.S. allies, a very close U.S. ally, and he did not approve of what had happened, of missiles being fired into Qatar. But there was a qualifier in there, in that the goal of taking out Hamas, according to Levitt in her statement, was a worthy goal. So Trump was not happy. I don't like it. But going after Hamas, I like it. That was pretty much what Carolyn Levitt said. And she said at the end of her statement, and Trump said the same thing in the Truth Social post, that maybe now this is a chance for peace, because Israel attacked Qatar and launched a decapitation missile strike into Qatar to kill the negotiators, the peace negotiators, right? This is now a chance for peace. Somehow that's the way this is being spun, which is kind of bizarre. So the Israeli jets, fighter jets, they flew from Israel over Jordan airspace, over Saudi airspace for sure, and then they fired the missiles into Qatar, where there's a huge a U.S. military presence in Qatar, in Saudi Arabia, everywhere. There's a huge U.S. military presence. The jets had to refuel, and at first the reports were that the U.S. helped the fighter jets refuel, but now we're getting reports saying that the U.K. actually refueled those fighter jets so they could reach their targets. So you're telling me that Jordan did not notify the United States or Qatar. Saudi Arabia did not notify the United States or Qatar. The UK that refueled those fighter jets did not notify the United States or Qatar that all of this was about to go down. And it was too late. By the time Trump was notified by somebody in the military, it was just too late. Is that what we're supposed to believe? Trump had no clue as these fighter jets were crossing over Jordan and Saudi Arabia and getting refueled by the UK. At least that's the story that they're telling us. Refueled by UK, and then they launched missiles into Qatar to take out the negotiating team. And by the time the president of the United States found out about this, it was just too late. The missiles had already been fired. And what was Trump's reaction when he found out about a possible strike into Qatar? This is strange. This is really strange. Am I the only one that thinks this is strange? He told Steve Witkoff to call the Qataris. Don't you guys find that as a bit strange? I mean, I guess the argument could be made that Witkoff was the negotiator with the Qataris. So maybe that's why Trump told Witkoff, because you're negotiating with Qatar. Qatar was mediating as the mediators, as Qatar is the mediators, and Witkoff is negotiating with the mediators who are also speaking to Hamas, right? You contact Qatar and you warn them. Steve Witkoff. I would imagine that there would be some sort of faster way to notify Qatar, maybe by the Pentagon. Wouldn't the Pentagon be able to notify Qatar about fighter jets which are about to launch missiles into their sovereign territory? Wouldn't the Pentagon notify the Qatari military, or maybe tell the U.S. Military base in Qatar that this is about to happen, or maybe tell the U.S. ambassador in Qatar that this is about to happen, instead of going through Witkoff? Or why did Trump not call up Netanyahu directly and tell Netanyahu, call this off? Was it too late by then to call it off? When the fighter jets were over Jordan or Saudi Arabia, you couldn't get in contact. Oh, you didn't know. Sorry, you didn't know. I was about to say you couldn't get in contact with Netanyahu and tell him to call it off. You didn't know. You didn't know that Israeli fighter jets were crossing over Saudi Arabia, which is huge. Saudi Arabia is big, right? A lot of territory to cross over. I just feel like it's really weird. I think it's really weird that the story is Trump told Witkoff to call Qatar, but it was too late by then. That's what they're telling us. And you know, Trump gave a warning 2-3 days ago on Truth Social. He said that he's already presented some sort of a ceasefire deal to Israel, and they've accepted it. And he's going to present the same deal to Hamas, and this is their last chance, their last warning, and to accept the deal, or else, you know, bad things are going to happen, right? Which is the same type of post that he made on Truth Social back in May, on May 27th, where he said that Putin is playing with fire. And some bad things. I'm stopping some very bad things from happening. Putin is playing with fire. You guys remember that post. And 2-3 days later, you got Operation Spider's Web, where Ukraine launched all of the drones to hit the Russian airfields, including nuclear military assets. He made the post on the 27th, and on June, I believe it was June 1st, or the end of May, you had Operation Spiderweb, which was launched. Same type of thing. Trump posts something on Truth Social, and then 2 days later, something happens. And then, of course, you have the decapitation strikes against Yemen. You had the Yemen leadership, which was the prime minister, who was killed just a week ago or 2 weeks ago by Israel. You had the decapitation strikes that were launched against Iran, where they took out many Iranian scientists. So we've gone from scientists to negotiators. They actually tried to take out, according to the New York Times, from a New York Times report, they tried to actually assassinate the president of Iran, Pezeshkian, and he was actually injured in the attempted decapitation strike. And then you got the 12-day war. So it looks like this is a tactic that the Trump White House is now using, where they try to lure certain officials to a certain location, or they get the country to believe that they're in some sort of a negotiation process. They let their guards down, and then the strikes happen. This is how the United States is going to be conducting foreign policy going forward, right? This is how they're going to be conducting conflict going forward. The strategy has become decapitation strikes, and then if you can take out the leadership, I guess the thinking is that it makes regime change a whole lot easier, right? Just take out the leadership, and then you can get the regime change a lot faster. And that may be the strategy in Venezuela. A lot of analysts are saying that's exactly what the strategy is going to be in Venezuela. Though Venezuela is a big country, and it's going to be more difficult to take out the Maduro leadership. If you can launch strikes into Venezuela, and if you also have assets on the ground who are waiting for the strikes before they move, who knows? Maybe you can successfully get that regime change. So I'm just looking here at what Trump said. Trump condemns Israeli attack on Qatar. Trump said that as soon as he was informed about the operation, he directed Witkoff to warn Qatari officials, but noted the alert came too late to stop the attack. The president claimed that eliminating Hamas was a worthy goal, but expressed hope that this unfortunate incident could serve as an opportunity for peace. Okay, story number 3 for today. Another big story, and that is drones over Poland. Drones over Poland. Article 5! Article 5! So Russia launched another big drone and missile strike over Ukraine. Ukraine also launched drones into Russia as well, by the way. So a lot of drones going back and forth, but the Russian drone strike was much larger than the Ukrainian drone strike. And we got the news, the reports that some Russian drones were over Poland, and then the Polish authorities, they scrambled their fighter jets. NATO scrambled their fighter jets, and Romania helped out as well. And they took down the Russian drones, the alleged Russian drones, and they shut down 3-4 airports in Poland, including the Warsaw airport. And Donald Tusk, the prime minister of Poland, he put out a message on X saying that Russia was sending drones into Poland. And he also enacted, or he's trying to enact Article 4, not Article 5, but Article 4, which means that NATO has to, I think it means NATO has to convene and talk about a possible escalation or attack on a NATO member state, and then they can deliberate about maybe possibly Article 5 or something like that. That's Article 4 is before you get to Article 5, right? So Tusk is trying to get that going, and yeah, drones over Poland, and Macron is freaking out, and Kaya Kallas is freaking out, and Foreign Minister of Ukraine, Mr. Shiba Inu, he is freaking out. Article 5, Russia's attacking NATO. How can this? How can we stand for this? And this is an act of war. Anyway, if Russia was going to attack NATO, you think they would send 5 drones, and the number of drones was five or less drones that somehow were in Poland. Keep in mind that we had a similar incident way in the beginning of the conflict in Ukraine, when everyone thought that Russia had fired a missile into Poland, and Zelensky was calling for NATO to attack Russia, for NATO to go to war with Russia because of this missile, and then it was later found out that the missile is actually a Ukrainian missile. So keep that in mind. Anyway, we don't have a statement from the Russian Ministry of Defense about what happened, but Peskov, he was asked to comment on this, and he said, look, he said the collective West, NATO, they're always talking about how we're attacking them, but I'll leave this to the Ministry of Defense to issue an official statement on what happened. But the consensus thinking on this now, the analysis on this, and I think it's pretty solid, this analysis, is that these were Russian reconnaissance drones. So these weren't attack drones, and they probably went into Poland because of some electronic warfare, electronic jamming, and they moved into Polish territory. Actually, Belarus, they even put out a statement saying that they even contacted Poland and the neighboring countries, notifying them that they were shooting down drones that were over their airspace, and warned them about some reconnaissance drones possibly being over their airspace as well. Belarus stated that they shot down some drones last night, which were diverted from their course by electronic warfare. So basically, it's Belarus's way of telling Poland and the Baltic countries, don't freak out. Don't freak out. There's Russian drones that were moving into Ukraine or towards Ukraine. Ukraine was also launching drones into Russia. It looks like electronic warfare diverted some of these drones. They're over our airspace. They might go over your airspace. These are reconnaissance drones. Don't flip out. We're just letting you know that we're shooting some of them down, so keep that in mind. It looks like that was the warning, the message that Belarus relayed to the neighboring countries, which is a good thing. It's a good thing that they're communicating like this, or that Belarus is communicating like this, because you avoid any misunderstandings, right? But no. Not Donald Tusk, not NATO. They jumped on this, and they started to talk about Article 4 and attacking NATO, and Russia's going to war with us, and all of this nonsense. And the reason they do that is pretty straightforward. I mean, we know why they blew this thing up, this story up, because they're trying to they're trying to find a way to pressure the United States to provide a no-fly zone air defense over Ukraine. They're very, very desperate. They're in a panic to pull the United States into the conflict in Ukraine, and to get the U.S. to commit to providing air defense support, and effectively trying to to create a no-fly zone over Ukraine. They know they can't do that without the United States. So they're now blowing this thing up, and they're taking it to the Trump administration. They're saying you have to do something about this. So you have to provide air defense to Ukraine. The United States has to create a no-fly zone. That's the first reason that they're blowing this story up. The second reason is because they're trying to escalate the conflict so that eventually NATO gets involved, right? That's something that Zelensky definitely wants to see happen. Zelensky from day one has understood that the only way he has any chance to take on Russia is if NATO gets actively involved in the conflict, a war between Russia and NATO. And Zelensky has tried many times to pull NATO and the United States into a conflict with Russia. But he's been unsuccessful so far. I mean, right now, NATO is involved in the conflict. The United States is involved, but it's a proxy coalition war. They want a real hot war between NATO and Ukraine. That's pretty much the only chance that they have left. And another reason they really hyped this drone story up, I believe, is because you have Ursula's State of the Union address, which just took place. And this is her tatters. She calls it the State of the Union address. I call it her tatters address because that was the address where many years ago she said, Russia's economy is in tatters, tatters, I tell you. And this coincides very nicely with the EU, Ursula's State of the Union tatters address, because what's one of the main things that she's pushing for is more military spending and more military escalation with Russia. And so this plays nicely to that, right? Tusk was posting on X like crazy, right? Here we go. An operation is underway related to multiple violations of Polish airspace. The military used armaments against the objects. I am in constant contact with the president and the minister of defense. I received a direct report from the operational commander. And then Tusk posted last night, the Polish airspace was violated by a huge number of Russian drones. Those drones that posed a direct threat were shot down. I am in constant communication with Secretary General of NATO and our allies. Secretary of General of NATO. That's the CEO of NATO, Mr. Who's Your Daddy, Mark Rutte. Donald Tusk is in touch with Mark Rutte, because he is saying that these were Russian drones that were downed. You know, when you think about it, Poland is very actively, as close to actively involved in this conflict as a country can get, right? I mean, that is the country where the majority of the weapons, if not all of the weapons, come into Ukraine from. A lot of training of Ukraine military, a lot of training of pilots. Some sources even claim that the pilots are NATO pilots that are involved in the conflict. You have thousands of Polish, mercenaries is what they call them, because they can't call them Polish military. About 3,000, I think, is what the Russians claim. Polish mercenaries have been deleted in the conflict. So I mean, Poland is, you're on the front line. You haven't said you're going to stay out of this. You've actually done the exact opposite. You said you've said you are going to be very actively involved in this conflict and in the escalation of this conflict. That's the choice that the Polish leadership made. And so if you have 4 or 5 drones flying over your airspace that it looks like they were diverted because of electronic jamming and stuff like that, and they weren't even, my understanding, reading the analysis, is that we're not even talking about lethal attack drones or anything like that, well then, I don't think that's such a big deal, is it? Am I wrong about that? I mean, you guys are funneling so many weapons into Ukraine and escalating this conflict. In the last 4 years, 5 drones, 5 reconnaissance drones. It's not such a big deal, man. Anyway, maybe I'm wrong about this. I don't know. So, let's see. Big story number 3. Big story number 4. Ursula's State of the Union. Is that a big story or is that a clown world? Ursula said that there's going to be some sort of health scare. I don't know where that came from. Yeah, she's talking about a health scare. I don't know. I don't know what she is talking about, but she's saying the EU is going to do whatever they need to do to prevent disinformation, and something's coming with regards to health. I don't know. I don't know what she's going on about, but they're cooking something up. So that was one thing that she said during her speech, and she also talked about building up the military, right? Europe has to build up its military. She said there's all kinds of imperial conflicts, imperial wars, and imperial powers in the world, and Europe cannot be left out. It needs to build up its military forces as Europe. So basically, the summary of Ursula's speech, her strategy in her State of the Tatters address. State of the Tatters address, that's good. State of the Tatters address from Ursula. Her message was that the EU, the strategy is going to be big pharma and the military-industrial complex. There you go. There you go. That's it. That's her strategy. Big pharma and the MIC. That's Europe. That's the EU. That's what we have to look forward to over the next 5 to 10 years. All kinds of money being thrown away at big pharma and being thrown away at the MIC. Ursula did not mention anything about her text messages with big pharma. She didn't talk about that. What happened to those text messages, Ursula? Since you're talking about disinformation and health scares and stuff like that, pandemics and stuff like that. She didn't want to get into that. That was her speech. And big story number 5. Big story number 5. By the way, Qatar, I was just thinking, the United States, I was going to say the United States greenlit. I won't say that. Trump had no idea about Israel's strike into Qatar. So he's playing it dumb. I had no clue, I had no idea. Qatar's a good friend. They're an ally, an important ally, but it's a worthy goal to take out Hamas. But it was Qatar that gifted Trump a $400 million airplane, right? And it's Qatar that said they're going to invest $1.4 trillion into the United States. And now you have this incident. Man, Qatar. Not looking good. Not looking good at all. You've given Trump so much money. You've given him a freaking plane. And that's the thank you that you get, right? So let's get back to big story number 5, which is that France has a new prime minister, Le Carnu, as I was saying in my video update 2 days ago. Take a look at my video update from 2 days ago. The word was that Macron, once the Bayrou government had collapsed, that he would opt for a new prime minister and a new administration, and that person who would head up the new administration would be his defense secretary, the 39-year-old Le Carnu. And that's exactly what happened. He is the new prime minister of France. And he actually has a good relationship with Marine Le Pen. And so the word on the street is that Le Carnu is going to try and sweet talk Le Pen so that he can get on board with a budget that he's going to put together with Macron, and they can vote that budget through the parliament, and the crisis will Macron's crisis will have ended. That is the strategy that they are putting forward, and Macron will remain as president of France until his term ends in 2027. National Rally has already come out with statements saying, nope, that is not going to be enough. We are not going to agree to any kind of a budget, unless, of course, it has the policies that we support, but that's not going to happen either. And they want elections. National Rally insists on elections. They are not in a cooperation mood with the Macron government, past, present, or future. But we will see. We will see what happens when Le Carnu does take on meetings with Le Pen, if he really is buddies with Le Pen, and if he can really talk her into going along with the Macron government and their budget policies. There are protests in France today, and the protests seem pretty big, and they have gotten pretty violent. And what do the protesters want? They want Macron to go. That's what they want, man. Everyone is sick of Macron, man. Everyone is just freaking sick of the guy. No one wants him. Approval rating of 15%. He doesn't leave, though. He doesn't leave. He doesn't want to leave. And his plan is to stay until 2027. That is his plan. He is not going anywhere, even though people are out on the streets in France. As I'm recording this video, they are protesting. And the protests' message, the goal is very simple. We want Macron to go. Macron is the guy who crashes your party, and no one wants him there, right? He enters your home, and you're having a party, and everyone stops and looks over as he enters through the door, and they say, "What are you doing here? No one wants you here." And he doesn't leave. He doesn't leave, even though a bunch of people come up to him and they say, "Yo, Macron, listen, man, we don't really want you at this party. So why don't you just leave?" No, I'm not going anywhere. I'm going to stick around and drink and have a good time. That's Macron. Can't get rid of him, man. No one wants him there, but you can't get rid of him. So I think that is everything, huh? Do we have any more news to discuss? Oh, the Trump administration. Here's an interesting story before we get to a clown world. The Trump administration is pushing the European Union to impose secondary sanctions on China and on India, specifically on China. It seems like they're shifting to China now, but they want the EU to not buy any energy from China or from India. The Russia secondary sanctions. They want 100% tariffs, and they want the EU to go first. The United States has said, look, we're ready to support you, European Union. You guys have to go first and place 100% tariffs on Russian oil, and place those tariffs on China and India. That means buying nothing from India, buying nothing from China. Once you do this, European Union, we've got your back, right? Meanwhile, J.D. Vance is saying that Trump sees no point in economic isolation with Russia. So J.D. Vance is talking about the United States doing business with Russia, right? That's what J.D. Vance is saying. The Trump administration, the way we're looking at it, we want to do business with Russia. We see no reason in isolating Russia. We want business with Russia and with Putin in the Arctic, with energy. We want to talk. And at the same time, they're telling the European Union, guys, you got to stop buying Russian energy. You got to place 100% tariffs on Russia. Do it. We got your back. Trust us. We have your back. Even Bessent put out a post on X, and he said, we got your back. I'm talking to Ursula. I'm talking to EU officials. I'm telling them, you guys go first. You guys place 100% tariffs on Russian energy. Stop buying stuff from China. Stop buying stuff from India, and we'll support you. And if the EU goes ahead and places these tariffs, these 100% tariffs and sanctions on Russia, and they stop buying stuff from China and India, man, the EU, they are suckers, man, and they'll do it. You know, the EU is going to do it, and then the United States is going to sign all kinds of business deals with Russia. That's exactly what's going to happen, man. I'm calling it right now. I am calling it right now. The EU in their 19th sanctions package, they're going to place 100% secondary tariffs, secondary sanctions on Russia and countries that trade with Russia. And that's going to be in the 19th sanctions package. And then the United States, a couple of weeks later, they're going to come out with an announcement and say, hey, you know what? Exxon is going to be cooperating with Gazprom in the Arctic. That's what's going to happen, man. Oh, God. Anyway, let's do a clown world and we can wrap this video up. Oh, by the way, Pavel Durov, he posted on X about the protests in Paris. 1 second, do I have this post from Pavel Durov? Yes, I do. Yes, I do. He posted, proud that Telegram is a tool for protests in France against Macron's failed policies. After 8 years of neglect, people are done with empty PR and posturing, and they're striking back. Pavel's revenge on little Napoleon, right? Yeah, Pavel's revenge. Okay, so who's next in the regime change order? Venezuela and then Indonesia? Is it going to be Venezuela first and then Indonesia? Or is it going to be Indonesia and then Venezuela? Yeah, we'll see. Dangerous world we live in. Very dangerous world. Decapitation strikes. So, EU considers sanctions against China over Russian oil purchases. The EU is going to sanction China. Oh, man. That's a clown world. I'm done. The video is over. Video is over. So Kaya Kallas, here's the real clown world. Of course, Kaya Kallas, she's dominating clown world segments. Kaya Kallas, I mean, she is absolutely dominating. She gave a speech to the parliament before Ursula's State of the Tatters address. And Kaya Kallas, she gave her speech, which was heavily focused on Project Ukraine and Russia, go figure. And no one showed up. Like, no one showed up. There was no one in attendance. It was just Kaya Kallas talking to nobody. Everyone's done with Kaya Kallas. Everyone's had enough of Kaya Kallas. Even people in the European Union, even the technocrats and the kleptocrats who are her colleagues and her peers, they're done with her. They don't want to hear anything from Kaya Kallas. Anyway, I thought that was funny. And I think that's it. I don't think I have anything else as far as clown worlds go. On balance, it was a pretty crazy past 24 hours. Pretty depressing, pretty dangerous 24 hours. So I think I will end the video there. TheDuran.locals.com. We are on Rumble, Odyssey, BitChute, Telegram, and Rockfin. Go to the Duran shop, pick up some merch like what I'm wearing in this video update. There is a link in the description box down below. Take care.